Sorry, Gene. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind sitting down, we're going to call this meeting to order.
What a great guy.
It's Tuesday afternoon, December 3rd, our first council meeting of the month. We have one more this year. So, again, I'd like to call it to order and ask if there's any pecuniary interests under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I won't be sitting on the Court of Revision, but I don't believe we don't sit as council then, so. But just to be clear.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have it.
So we have a motion by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that the previous minutes of the November 19th council meeting are approved. All in favor of that? Against, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so additional items anybody wants to discuss today? Judy? And we'll leave that open.
I have one too.
Thanks, Ron. All right, so next motion. Moved by Councillor Gunson, second by Councillor McKenzie, that the Court of Revision convene. All in favor of that motion? Against, that's carried. What's that?
So, can you introduce it and then I'll do the same thing?
Yep. Okay, so our members on the Court of Revision are myself, Deputy Mayor Turton, Councillor Elliott, and Councillor Anderson. So we're talking today about Municipal Drain 23, Municipal Drain location, serving parts of Lot 21, Concession 12, Lots 21 to 27, Concession 13, and Lots 21 to 26, Concession 14, Lot 25, Concession 15 in the town of Minto, County of Wellington. So I'll pass the chair to Gord.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And as this is the first Court of Revision for this term, we must appoint a chair.
I would make a motion to appoint Deputy Mayor Turton as our chair.
Have a seconder? Okay. Mr. Anderson? More nominations? Okay. So then we have a motion moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Deputy Mayor David Turton chair the Court of Revisions for drains 23, 20, and 117. Do you accept?
I do accept.
All right. Carried.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Okay, so we've went through that. So the next question is, has everybody in attendance pertaining to the Court of Revision signed the log? All right, so we're okay. And who are they? Do we have anybody here in reference to the Court of Revision today?
Drain 23.
For Drain 23. Sir, are you with Drain 23? Okay, thank you. And you've signed in. Great. All right, so can you state your name, please? Stand up and state your name. Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Harry. Mr. Bowman. Okay, others present. Engineers or staff pertaining to this Court of Revision. Okay, Greg? Okay.
Well, I'd like to advise the court that no written appeals have been received with reference to this drain application. I would also request that members of the court make a motion to allow late appeals and walk-in appeals. Councillor Anderson? Okay. So moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that the Court of Revisions will accept late appeals and walk-ins. Vote. Carried.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Greg, our engineer, to present the information. And if there's questions, please put your hand up, step up to the mic, state your name, and ask your question. Mr. Bowman. Do we want to start with the questions, Greg, or do you want to present the information?
It doesn't matter to me.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Brown? Okay, good. We'll present the information and then we'll have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Municipal drain number 23 actually consists of some open ditch improvements, the installation of a new laneway culvert, the enclosure of the upper section, and the removal of 2 other existing crossings on this. With regards to assessment, the open portion, which includes the culverts, is a total estimated cost of $90,500. $43,400 of that has been assessed out under Section 22 benefit, which is 48% benefit for the open part, and $34,300 under Section 23 outlet liability. That's 38% of the total assessment. $12,800 under Section 24 special benefit for culvert and loss of access. That's 14%. Now on the enclosure part, you can find the assessments on page 14 of our report, and the total estimated cost of that is $97,000. $5,500 have been assessed out under Section 22 for benefit, 6%, and $7,900 under Section 23 outlet liability, which is 8%. $83,600 has been assessed under Section 26 special benefits. Total cost of the enclosure, that should have been 24, sorry, my mistake.
Okay.
86% of the total cost of the enclosure has been assessed under that special benefit. And the summary of assessments are found on the yellow pages, and they're pages 15 and 16 of our report.
Okay. That is your report, Greg. Thank you. Now, next up is questions. Mr. Baumann, please come up to the mic. State your name, what piece of land you're representing, and your questions. Yep. Hopefully it's on.
My name is Harry Bowman. I live at lot 26 in section 14, and we've had that land for between 50 and 60 years. We used to have about 500 acres in that area, and there are parts in that ditch that where drain 23 runs into the extension and goes to the surface that have never been cleaned out for at least 50 years, 50-some years. And I walked that piece of ditch this morning, and there are so many obstructions in there. There's no wonder that the water rises real quick in the spring, or any good rainstorm. And then I didn't know that, but there's also I wouldn't call it a culvert, I would call it a main. And the one has a tile. There's one tile in about this size, and there's one in about that size. So with a good rainstorm, that water rises so quickly, and that dam is made out of concrete. I didn't even know it was there. So that makes the farmer be able to go into his field, although he has access to from the Eaton Road into that pile, like the ditch goes, kind of divides his land. There's so many obstructions in there. There's big trees, great big huge old maple trees, all ready to fall down onto that thing. I just can't for the world of me understand why you guys do cleaning ditches, and those spots have never been touched for at least 50 years. That makes the water rise. And that makes our field, like the one field that we have, makes our field almost a lot in the spring. So that's why I thought, please walk, physically walk the thing
Yep.
and see what the problems are. And I just cannot understand why the dam is in there, because when you have the culvert that was under the road, that thing's gonna be 12 feet wide. You can drive a car through it. And then you have a dam just about 600 feet from it, with a little culvert, like little tubing like that, and one a little bit bigger. That obstructs everything. I didn't even know that was allowed. Anyway, I spoke my piece.
Well, that's a good point. Greg, do you want to rebut to that?
Yeah, can I get some clarification on just what open ditch you're talking about? Is it on here, or is it off this page?
I forgot my glasses.
You don't mind?
So,
You go through across the Eden Road, like
Okay, I don't have the Eaton Road on here, but here's Newman's Lane. Okay, Eaton Road, right down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get to is this the 14th?
Yes, that's the 14th. Yeah.
Okay, this piece. In here. And then we used to have lot 27 as well. And 27 and 28, where the ditch goes through, has never been cleaned out either.
Oh, are you right here? This big open ditch, municipal
Yeah.
drain number 2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can.
Because see, 23 runs into 2.
okay.
Oh, okay.
You gotta have a look at that because
So-
there's so many obstructions in there to use.
We're actually in the process of doing that,
Are
and
we?
we have had municipal drain number 2 surveyed. That report will be forthcoming shortly. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for interest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so any questions on the Drain 23?
Nothing on
Nothing at all. All right. So I'd like a mover and a seconder that the Court of Revision accepts the assessment of Drain 23 as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Seconded. Councillor Anderson. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. So let's move along to Municipal Drain 20 and 117. The municipal drain location serving parts of Lot 20 and 23, 20 to 23, concession 15, lots 15 to 26, concession 16, lots 20 to 27, concession 17, and lots 21 to 27, concession 18 in the town of Minto, County of Wellington. We're going to move right along here to our acting clerk. Going to talk about no appeals. Go ahead. Okay, sorry, yep. We're going to do a roll call. Anyone present that wants discussion on Drain 20 and 117? All right, then hearing none, we have our engineer Greg, similar to the last. Okay, so Gord?
And I would advise the court that no appeals have been received in writing regarding these 2 drains. I would also request that members make a motion to allow late appeals and walk-in appeals. Excellent. All right.
All in favor, yeah?
All right. Good.
All right. So we're going to have a deliberation. I'll have Greg, our engineer, give us the information. Present it to us, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. In this particular report, Drain 20 is an open ditch, and we're proposing to do some pretty major cleaning of Drain 20 and the incorporation of one agricultural farm crossing on the grassland property. There's also drain number 117, which is a tile drain, which is a new drain to become a municipal drain. Drain 20 assessments are on pages 12 to 15 of our report. Total estimated cost of Drain 20 is $59,500. $15,400 of that has been assessed out under Section 22 benefit assessment, which is 26%. $35,400 have been assessed out under outlet liability, Section 23, 60%. $8,700 has been assessed out under special benefit, That's for that culvert that was incorporated, so 15% of that. Drain number 117, the new tile drain. Those assessments show up on page 16. Total estimated cost of that project, or that portion of the project, $86,400, with $26,300 being assessed out under benefit, which is 59% after the special assessment has been taken off. $18,280 have been assessed out under outlet liability, 41%, and $41,820 have been assessed out under Section 26 special assessment, and that's to the road authority, which is the road authority happens to be assessed at 48% of the total costs of that project, or that portion of the project. A summary of these assessments are on the yellow pages, pages 17 to 20 of our report.
Questions to Greg? Hearing none, then I'll accept a motion that the Court of Revision accepts the assessment of drain 20 and 117 as presented. Thank you, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Elliott. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Okay, so I'd like to, I don't think I need a motion to adjourn the court. So the Court of Revision is adjourned for today. Thank you for coming. And Greg, thank you for your input. Appreciate you working with all the farmers and all the stakeholders in this, move this process along very nicely. Okay. So if you want to stay, Greg, and hear some exciting stuff, if not, yes.
It is pretty tempting.
So
All right.
busy.
Thanks a lot. So, got a motion by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the town of Minto revenes into the committee of the whole. All in favor of that? Against? Oh, thanks. That's carried. No public meetings today, but we do have delegations. So I'm going to ask Mr. Luke Hartung to come up to the front, for a verbal report on the farmers market, Palmerston. Welcome, Luke. Thank you for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me. As you alluded to, I'm here to give a year-end report and outlook towards next year for the Minto Farmers Market. We had another successful year. It is just at one location now at Palmerston, at the Heritage Railway Museum. And we once again thank the town for its continued support of the market. We continue to have strong attendance. We've got a good group of vendors that seem to show up every single week with quality product, which is great. And the attendance of overall continues to seem to be strong and grows every year, with the bulk of the attendees being mostly from the local area. Some from neighboring communities like Mapleton and Listowel direction. We are hitting a milestone year next year. It's our 10th anniversary at the Palmerston site, so that's pretty cool. And some highlights of the past year. We were very successful at our fundraiser events. We held a couple trivia nights in partnership with the Palmerston Legion in the wintertime. Had a corn roast fundraiser at the Palmerston Market, and then we held a strawberry social event at the actual site. A very big thanks to Taylor. She's very much the person who leads the charge on helping us get organized, including the notes for me today, which is great. I guess some things to look to next year. We're looking to get maybe a student that would be a little more involved in the marketplace, and Taylor is helping coordinate with that, which is great. We are going to continue our fundraising events at all three of those, the trivia nights, the corn roast, and having a strawberry event at the actual market. There's a few market highlight days which do help draw extra people out, which is great. We're going to tweak a few things to our vendor handbook to get it a little more up to date. which is good. And also at the actual site, the Railway Museum, the Palmerston Lions Club, they've been working at replacing the boardwalk. It's getting kind of weathered, more the boards underneath as opposed to the actual flooring. But anyways, they have that, I believe, half done with new bricking. It looks great, so that's awesome that they do that. And furthermore, into a county level, I guess two things. One, Market Bucks, which is I believe a county initiative, has been very successful from a vendor standpoint, and also bringing new people out to the market, which has been commented on by a lot of the vendors. And there is going to be a county-wide meeting of markets people, I guess, headed by the county to kind of bounce ideas off one another, to get people networking with one another, get ideas for from our market to pass along to others. We have had comments from the county that ours is one of the more successful markets in the county, which is cool to hear. So, and that's really all I got.
Questions for Luke? Hearing none. It's an excellent report.
Thank you.
Taylor's very good at that.
Yes, she is.
Thank you, Luke, for all your participation over there and your leadership. It's likely one of the reasons why it is one of the top in the county. So, thank you very much. So, moving right along, we're going to talk about healthcare. So I'll ask Shirley and Andrea to come up, and certainly, no problem.
All right.
Partnership. So as everybody knows, these young ladies are leadership in our doctor recruitment in Minto Mapleton, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Shirley Borges, Executive Director of the Family Health Team, but more importantly, Chair of the Recruitment Committee, and I've been doing that for many, many years. So here I am, and it's really exciting to give an annual report on what we're up to with our recruitment. And on my right is and I'm the professional staff and credentialing lead for and a member of the excellent. So, Deputy Mayor, we sent a lovely letter and an update to the Mayor in November requesting to come before you today. And I think it's important that you can see us, we're visible, that you can understand really what we're up to with our recruitment over the past year. And it's kind of reflecting last night as I was preparing today. It's a little bit remarkable what we've done in Minto Mapleton over the past several years. Like, we have 9 physicians now spread throughout Minto Mapleton community, serving really our residents and our patients. And we have a full complement of over 20 family health team staff, 5 nurse practitioners that are working in our communities, also providing primary care to our residents. So it's been lots of work, and there's more work to come, but I think those are no small successes. I'm not going to go through the report per se, because I know you can all read very well. What I will do, I just want to highlight a couple of things, and then I want Andrew to spend some time on the bulk of our work, which is with our residents. So I'll just maybe highlight a couple of things. First of all, special thanks to the town of Minto. I always feel that you supported us with our recruitment, not only in spirit and participation, and now thank you, Dave, for serving on our committee as the representative from Minto, but also to Belinda, who didn't write my speech today, but really helps a lot in between meetings and also at our meetings. I call on her often. And some of you may or may not know that Ron Faulkner and Mary Lou Caldwell continue as community representatives on our committee. And I think it's more than just a good lunch that brings them back to the table and working with us. And then also from Minto, we have David Craig, who have been a long-serving community resident and a member of our committee. So we're really well served by our Minto residents and constituents. So we've had a productive year, and we've had really 3 meetings and another meeting coming up next week. And I guess where we've come to in the past year is that despite our 9 practices, they're full. And our communities, we now have municipal updates at our recruitment meetings, and they're growing, and they're going to continue to grow. And we've really wrestled with this over the last year, and I think we have now come to the conclusion that we do need to recruit. So, of course, the recruitment committee is one aspect of that. The 9 physicians are working together to put together a bit of a business proposal, a case, what can we offer to recruit another physician. And there's a lot of work that goes into that in terms of ministry paperwork, et cetera. But we've come to the point now that we've kind of stretched as far as we can in terms of existing practices, and we do need to recruit. So that's been kind of our main, I think, thrust in terms of our capacity and looking at changing demographics. We were really fortunate to have our charity ball game sponsored and in Minto past year in June, and it was a tremendous success. It was our 2nd annual game. And there were some funds that were raised as part for the foundation, but more importantly, it brought our physicians together and their community members and their families, and it was really just an excellent day. We received and reviewed the hospital's hospital professional staff HR plan, and Andrea maybe will make a couple comments about some of the staffing that's coming up over the next year at the hospital. And we also support Dr. Peterkin, who makes regular reports back to the hospital board on behalf of recruitment, to make sure they understand where we're at with our successes and our challenges. So Andrea, I wonder if you could just share a few words about the bulk of the work that you're involved with in terms of recruitment and our medical records. Sure.
So we continue to base our recruitment through medical students and residents and provide the clinical training opportunities for them. And we're very fortunate in North Mountain Healthcare to have both Dr. Peterkin and Dr. Deacon take on medical residents and the students to work with them to gain valuable learning experience. And then also become familiar with the hospital community. Dr. Peterkin has had 6 medical residents work with her in 2019. Medical residents are licensed physicians and are able to support our local physicians working while they also gain experience. And then medical students are not yet physicians, but are working towards their license to practice. And it is our hope that medical students have a positive experience and return to us as residents, continuing with their training. And Dr. Deacon had 4 medical students work with him in 2019. And then looking ahead to 2020, we already have medical residency and clinical credentials to work with Dr. Peterkin. And we have a medical learner coming from Australia to work with Dr. Deacon, who is a previous resident. McMaster held a family medical resident day in October that I attended with medical students and residents looking to connect with areas of sex conversation and learn more about communities that offer learning opportunities in the hospital. There was a lot of interest from the learners in the Palmerston District Hospital and inquiring about local opportunities upon graduation. When medical students have a positive experience with our physicians, hospital, and community, they go back and share their enthusiasm with their fellow medical students and residents, which creates interest in other medical coming within the community. So Shirley mentioned the HR plan, and just a little update. The hospital, we currently have a general surgeon in the process applying for privileges at PBH, who would be there on a part-time basis, as well as an ear, nose, and throat specialist currently in the process of completing their application for privileges. And I expect those both to be in place in January.
Excellent, thank you. That's very interesting.
Just a couple of a few updates. So next week at our recruitment committee, Andrea and I will be talking about a LIN-wide physician survey that's going to be accessed by anyone in our community who's looking for a physician. Is to help us gather data. So the survey basically looks: are you new to the area? Are you in an area where you don't have a physician? Providing details, some demographics as to the location. It'll help us to start gathering data so that when we do recruit, we actually know at least a glimpse of what those numbers are showing. And Andrew's going to help get that information posted in our local emergency departments at the hospitals. And so we hope that will be launched in the new year, and that will help to make a case as well for residents who are looking for a physician. one of our biggest worries, and sometimes I chuckle about it, is that we'll recruit a physician and we won't have enough patients for him or her. And so, while really that hasn't played out in other communities, there's always that concern, and it's a new business for us because we've always had a retiring physician and recruiting to replace that retiring physician's practice. So it feels different for us, and I think the more data that we have, the better. But I still think, regardless of the data, we are at a position where we will be recruiting. And just a quick note on the financial request. So we are requesting $10,000 from the town of Minto. We'll be requesting the same from Minton, and that will help really provide the staffing support through Andrew to the recruitment committee and for efforts. A reminder that those dollars are matched by our hospital, 50/50, and really without that support and the staff support through Andrea, I don't think our recruitment efforts will go far. So I'll maybe just pause there and see if there are questions for us.
Questions? Councillor Elliott.
I do. You're bringing in a new recruited physician, and you're afraid of not getting enough patients for that. Now, I assume some of your doctors are overloaded with patients as it is, right? They're at the level where will some of those patients be offloaded if they wish to go to a new doctor? How would you do that?
That's not the plan at the moment.
Okay.
So the plan at the moment is to accommodate new growth and new patients, new people coming to our area, and also people that perhaps are doctoring in other parts of the region and have been afraid to leave that provider because they may not get one here. So the plan right now is really to serve those folks that currently aren't attached to a provider. What you propose is interesting. I don't know whether that will come to fruition with our physicians. That will be really their decision. But you are correct. Their practices are full.
Yeah, so I assume that there would be an overload if something came to that point, then maybe that's what you could do.
The other interesting point about your question is there has been some discussion whether we will be able to take on with our existing providers some people temporarily, so that when a new provider arrives, that we would be able to transfer those patients over to that new provider. But I think ethically, those patients would have to be well aware that that is the situation. Because as you know as yourselves, once you get to know your provider, that's a very important relationship and hard to leave.
Yes.
And so that certainly would be, I think, part of the conversation with physicians.
Okay.
Councillor Anderson.
Hi there. I have several questions. As far as the numbers for rostering physicians, is that a barrier anymore? Has that been removed? They've talked about removing it, but the last I heard, it has not been removed. It's
Correct.
a very long, slow process.
So Andrea may know a little bit more than I do, but we are still on the high needs list from the LINS perspective, and that's really important because if we're not, then we actually can't add to the position. And the difficulty that we run into, and Dr. Cressy, who has retired, who interestingly enough is doing locum for us now for a position on that leave, it took 2 positions to replace Dr. Cressy, and so those are hard numbers to come to terms with the ministry when you're applying. But we have been assured that we are eligible to apply. You are correct. There is paperwork, and you have to recruit and work through the process, but we are familiar with that process and we understand that we will be able to do that.
Because I know Fergus got caught on that several years ago on some of the doctors' share practices because they're not allowed to roster, and Walmart controls the number of people who come into Fergus, interestingly enough.
From our perspective, we are in good shape to add to the physician complement. You do have to remember the physicians have to be in agreement with that. They have a separate agreement that allows them to bring on new physicians, and they have to unanimously support that and work through that process.
It's more, I was worried about the higher levels of government putting roadblocks. And as far as patients finding new physicians, the Ontario system is notoriously unsuccessful, but it's my understanding that's how they have to go through the process, or has that changed? Yes. It just, nobody ever finds a doctor through that system. They're waiting for years.
I'll take a stab at it first. So I think people have finally realized that that is correct what you're saying. And the new survey that's being put out is reflective of that, and people are not required to leave what was happening, people would have to de-roster or leave their current provider to sign up.
Right.
And so the survey is clarifying that they don't have to do that. Honestly, our physicians have really not participated in Healthcare Connect for quite a while because it was a laborious process for patients to work through, and they did not want to leave their current provider. So it still doesn't, Healthcare Connect still does exist.
So if you get a new physician and people can call their office and then just register directly without going through the Healthcare Connect, because it's a huge issue. I work casual in Groves, and the emergency department is constantly swamped with people who just don't have any other access to healthcare.
Yes.
Workplaces are becoming more and more strict about their attendance policies and asking people to provide notes within certain days or you don't get paid, but you can't access a doctor for weeks, even your own doctor. It's literally weeks to get an appointment unless you attend emergency department. So kudos to you ladies. And what about the other ancillary healthcare providers, nurses, RTs, X-ray? Do you guys do any of that work? Or
So from my family health team hat, obviously that's part of my role. If we have a health team staff and we're at full complement. I'll maybe let Andrew address the hospital perspective because I'm not involved.
because I just know that the hospitals call every day for staffing.
So
constant.
Another excellent point, and that's something I think, Andrew will take back for sure to the hospital. And yes, that's a big job. It's a big job for our recruitment committee to look at physicians and nurse practitioners. And that's a big job.
Yep, it is.
And it's, I think what you're saying.
But it's taxing our current healthcare providers. Like people are working overtime all the time and short shifting and calling back and working every weekend, and there's a drain, and then eventually there's not staff, and doctors don't work on their own. They need that ancillary staff.
I was also just going to mention as well, Minto falls under the housing program through the
Yes.
ministry. That's in doctors. They would have to be here and it's spread over the community.
Other questions? Gord.
Yeah, I'll just note that it's always a pleasure to work with Shirley and Andrea, and we've got the $10,000 in our draft operating that we'll be discussing here next month. So, and yeah, it's always money well spent, in I think all our opinions.
Thank you, ladies. We need our hospitals. I'm sure that Belinda gets the question every time somebody's looking for a new home or street coming to our town. Do you have a hospital? Do you have schools? And
And do you have a doctor? Do you have a
Yes.
clinic? People that move to our area are amazed at the range of services we have to offer them through our hospital, our family health teams, our other services that are available. It's really, we have people come to the city that do not have certain kinds of services. Well, we need to keep working on it.
so on behalf of council, our mayor, the citizens of the town, thank you for all your hard work. 9 doctors and fully staffed, that's wonderful, and good luck in your recruitment process.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you. So if you ladies want to stay and hear something about asset management,
Hey.
so we do have
Say what you think.
Pretty clear.
we do have Mr. John Murray here, our third delegation, talk about the Public Sector Digest and the citywide asset management. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Council, and members of staff. Thanks very much. So my name is John Murray, and I'm the General Manager of Asset Management, as you just said. Been working with Minto for a number of years now, and I'm pleased to bring the latest asset management plan forward to the Council. Would you like me to say next slide, or? Thank you very much. Okay. This slide there's a lot on it. It's there just to say that the last asset management plan came forward to Council in 2016, but since then there's been a lot of work done within the town of Minto, and particularly at the staff level. So we've been working with the staff here. An asset management policy was brought forward to Council for approval. There was a lot of condition assessments done in the field of the various infrastructure types you have, which brings more credibility to the report that's with you today, better understanding of the true physical condition of things so we can quantify that within the report. We looked at risk and criticality models, which are also within the report. This helps us better prioritize capital programs and projects moving forward. Life cycle activity models. These are all a little bit of a jargon and a bit of a mouthful. I apologize. I'll explain what that is and how that helps with the financial strategies in the report. Level of service framework. This is something that's required by the province moving forward. So in 2021, I'm going to talk about some of the provincial regulations for asset management going forward. And you'll see that it requires a level of service framework. That's why we've started that work in this report, so the town of Minto will be ready for the new regulations. And I should state, for a fairly small town, Minto is far ahead of most municipalities of this size. And it's been really good to see. And working with good people like Gordon and Alcar, it's been a pleasure, and the public works staff to move things forward. So with that, the asset management plan itself, it's always good just to say what is in an asset management plan from a scope point of view and what is not. So it's always a snapshot in time. As I said, between the last plan and this one, there's a lot being done. There's still more to be done into the future. And this plan is based on year-end 2018 data, because we don't have year-end 2019 yet. So it is a snapshot in time. And an asset management plan looks at the existing infrastructure you have in the municipality. It's not about growth. It's what exists today, and it's the financial capacity to meet long-term capital needs of that infrastructure. How do you sustain and maintain those infrastructure services going forward? It's not about operations and maintenance, so just to make that clear. If we look at the portfolio, so within the report, and the report was about 100 and something pages long. I'm trying to do that in 20 slides. I'm open to any questions at the end, of course. So what I'm looking at is the overall portfolio of all assets. But within the report, we have sections that break that down by the roads, by the water distribution service, the wastewater collection service, and so forth. For the entire portfolio, so the total asset replacement cost, and that's in today's dollars, is about $320 million within the town of Minto. And what you'll see is the largest quantity of that is the road network. It's 40% of the replacement value, followed by the sanitary sewer system, water system, facilities, storm, and so forth. And I always think that for the public, if we go to the next slide, from a public point of view, $320 million is just a big number. Sounds like a stock market. But I much prefer this slide. So if we look at this slide, we break down that $320 million and we say, if we divide it by the number of households within Minto, your average household, your average family has a share of $80,000 worth of infrastructure service within their own community. And that's a much better message. So, people often say, what do we get for our taxes? You plow the streets, you pick up the garbage. When it comes to infrastructure services, this is the message. The road network, your average household has a share of $31,000 worth of road network. Your sanitary sewer system, over $12,000 worth a share of each household has. The water system, $10,000 and so forth. So I like to say that infrastructure is often forgotten about because we expect it to always be there. When you turn on the tap, you expect to have water. When you back out of your driveway, you expect the road to be there. But there is a cost to maintain those services. And then over and above that, the things that Alcar brings to the community, the recreational facilities, trails, parks, that brings a quality of life to the community as well. But there is a cost to maintain that going forward, of course. If we look at the condition of the assets in Minto today, town of Minto, I should say, there's some really good news within this report. The current state of things, the current management practices, and then later on we have some challenging news as well, of course. So currently, if we look at the overall asset stock and the condition of that asset stock, over 3/4 is in very good or fair condition. So things are being managed very well. We have 10% poor condition and 4% very poor, but that would be typical of the kind of items that would come forward into any capital program. That's why there's a capital program for replacement and renewal. The pie chart is based, as it says below, There's been a lot of condition collection in the field of actual condition data. 62% of all of the infrastructure assets you own have condition data. The other 38% of assets, we generalize the condition based on the age of the asset, just so you understand the data behind that graph. Service life remaining of your assets. This is also a good news story. So we're looking at how much life is left of the asset in the field compared with its design life. And you'll see that well over 86% actually of your assets has 10 years or more of remaining life. So that's good. You're in a pretty good condition. The next piece, so the financial analysis in this asset management plan has two different scenarios. So within these two slides, I'm going to explain the two different scenarios because it's a little bit complicated, but it's not too bad. So the end of life replacement scenario is what would have come in your last asset management plan and what most people do. And essentially you say when an asset is acquired or when it's built in the field, it has a design life. And when it runs the course of its design life, it must be replaced. And just to look at the graph, what the graph is showing you that on a condition range, 100% would be perfect. There's a deterioration profile that starts to slope down, done through an engineering analysis. And at the 30-point mark on this particular graph is when you would replace the asset. So probably a lot of roads have a 30-year life. And that would simply be the way we run the financial analysis on scenario 1. On scenario 2, we built life cycle strategies to do good life cycle management of the infrastructure. And I should note, it wasn't PSD who built these. We did this in workshops with Minto staff. And it was the expertise of the in-house staff and what they currently do in the field, working with ourselves to develop the life cycle frameworks, as we call it, that went into the report. So we've done life cycle management strategies for the road network, for the sanitary mains, for the storm mains, and for the water mains. And on the graph, it kind of explains the way that would work. So once again, that road, 100% condition, and it slopes towards 30 years where it needs to be replaced. Of course, in any municipality, public works crews are out there doing various pieces of work at different times to any asset. So the various points on that graph are showing you we might have done a crack sealing program. There might have been a point in the asset's life with an asphalt overlay. There might have been a point later on in the asset's life where it had a mill and pave, as we call it, as a secondary overlay. And ultimately, an asset will get to a point where it has to be replaced. We can't continue preventative maintenance and rehabilitation measures. But what you can do is by doing the right thing to the right asset at the right time, we extend the road's life to 60 years. And this is more common practice. So what we've done is we've looked at the practices here in Minto by good life cycle management. What are they? How much do they cost? When are they applied? What is the additional life of the asset you get? And then we run a secondary financial scenario based on that management practice. And what you will see is through good life cycle management, you will always get more bang for the public dollar. So there's some good news in this report because absolutely we'll see that as well. So the next graph, this is, if we look at all of that asset portfolio again, is what is the average annual capital requirements over a 50-year basis. Why do we use 50 years? It seems like a long time. You've just seen that roads last 30 years, up to 60 years in the field with the right management practices. Water mains last 80 years. Sewer mains could last 100 years. So the only way really to get a true financial projection of the money required to sustain your infrastructure for the future is to look at this long-term window. To explain the graph, on the x-axis, we see millions of dollars. And then along the bottom, we're looking at 5 years of expenditure into the future. And each of the colored bars on each of the bars, that is a different infrastructure class as depicted on the legend. So what you see is that Minto has a little bit of a backlog as per most municipalities. That's assets past due for replacement. And in the early years, there's very small, relationally small expenditures required for the replacements and renewals coming forward. But once we get to the 10, 15, 20-year mark, the significant spikes And Minto isn't alone in this. This is an infrastructure deficit issue that is right across Ontario. Municipalities are facing because all of our asset stock is getting older and older to a point where a significant amount of replacements will be required. You can just imagine water and sewer systems that are out of sight, out of mind, but they're continually aging. And this is a problem right across Canada, right across the Western world. That should be noted. But on this scenario, if we just look at end-of-life replacement, and we average out all the peaks and valleys in the bars, then if you had 10.5 million, your average annual capital requirement year upon year in your capital program, you could address all the needs right across the 50-year spectrum for the long-term needs of the community. The second graph, because there is a lot of information on each, this is when we run the life cycle strategies, and it's not for all assets. Once again, it's for your road network, for your water distribution network, your wastewater collection network, and your storm network. When we blend in the life cycle strategies, we can reduce that ask quite significantly just by good management practices. So I think that's a good news story for council. And the average annual capital requirement comes down to 8.7 million per year. And what you'll see is that the bars on the graph at that 10, 15, and 20-year mark are reduced significantly. So that's from good management practices, but there's still a significant deficit to be addressed. Then when we get into the financial strategy analysis, this graph is just showing you almost what I've said, the difference between the end-of-life replacement versus the life cycle strategy replacement. So for your tax-funded assets, the annual capital requirement end of life is 8.3 million. If you do a proper life cycle management model, it's 6.7. And you can see there's a significant difference. On the rate-funded assets, there's not as many life cycle management techniques you can do to underground assets as a road network, for instance. But there's still a significant decrease on the life cycle model when we apply that. And you can see the difference there as well. At the bottom of the graph, it shows you by following a good life cycle management strategy for your infrastructure management in the field, there's actually an annual capital cost avoidance of 1.7 million. So once again, I think that's a very good news story. That's because of progressive management practices in the town of Minto. And then it brings us to the infrastructure deficit. So there are absolutely some challenges ahead. And the key one is on the tax-funded assets. Sorry, I should have stated every other slide herein and the recommendations are based on the life cycle management scenario, because that is obviously the best scenario to follow, and that's the key recommendations in the reports. On your tax-funded assets, the annual capital requirement on the life cycle model is 6.7 million. Your current funding available is almost 1.8 million historically, so there's a significant annual capital deficit in place for that long-term management of your infrastructure. On your rate-funded assets, it's far much of a better news story. Even though that annual capital deficit looks significant, it's actually very good compared with other municipalities that we've done similar reports for. So in total, the town is facing an annual capital deficit of 5.6 million. And one of the key recommendations is that a financial strategy is definitely required to close the gap. So as we move forward, if we look at the tax-funded assets, and I'll read them. So that includes the road network, bridges, culverts, storm sewer system, facilities, machinery and equipment, land improvements, which is parks, parking lots, and so forth, and fleet, which is all the vehicles. In order to get to sustainable funding rates, and I know this is a tough news story, it would be a 20-year incremental increase of 4.1% year upon year applied to the capital tax-funded infrastructure. And there's a few additional things to that below, items B to D. With that, the financial analysis in the report shows that as debt cost reductions come off, so that's as debentures are paid off, the capital debt that you're carrying, you would apply the money released from the capital debt back to the same tax-funded program. Continue to allocate the current gas tax and OSIP revenue to those programs as well. and continue to increase the existing and future infrastructure budgets by the applicable inflation index. And I will say at this point, it's regulated in every asset management plan by the province that you cannot include grants over and above the ones we've listed. The reason why, they must be stable and they must be predictable. And the only ones they allow you to include in a financial strategy is the gas tax, which is very stable and predictable, and the OSIP. And in a couple of years that may change, because we know the OSIP is a little bit less predictable than what it was from a political point of view. So that's one thing to keep in mind. With that 20-year incremental increase in taxes, some of it may be offset by future grants that are unknown at this point in time. On the rate-funded assets, once again, this isn't too bad compared with other municipalities, to be quite honest. And you may have had a water wastewater rate study done. We're often asked the question. That is a little different. We look across the entire life cycle of the assets. We're only looking at capital. We're not looking at operations and maintenance as well, as you would get in that study, just in case the rate changes get confused. So what we're looking at is, to be sustainable in your sanitary sewer system, across the next 20 years, you'd want an increase of 0.8%. And on the water distribution system, actually, you're already at a sustainable rate. So that was quite good news. The additional points to that on the sanitary system, there's some reallocation of debt cost reductions once again to go back to the program as they come off the books, and then continue to increase the future infrastructure budgets by the applicable inflation index. And also on the water network, there's a slight reallocation of debt cost reduction back to the program to reach that sustainable rate with a 0% increase going forward. And actually, there's a slight surplus of money available that's something for council's discretion. Maybe that would go back to an operations and maintenance program or whatever at the time. So the key recommendations coming from the report. And I will say, as I said, we've worked with municipalities right across the country, so many in Ontario. We haven't met one municipality that doesn't have an infrastructure deficit. You're absolutely not alone in this. But the key recommendation is to adopt a long-term financial strategy, so you start to work towards eliminating that deficit. Because it's, the infrastructure deficit has taken some time to surface in municipalities right across the country. It will take some time to come out of it, but it's a long-term strategy to get there. That would be the right thing to do. From a staff point of view, there's so much good work already being done through the centralization of asset inventory into a centralized database for management purposes. We would recommend the continuation of that. Some really good change management practices brought forward, condition collection of assets in the field. But you did see there was still a 38% of assets that don't have condition data. We would recommend to carry on and get some good condition data. It just brings realism to the management of those assets, and to continue the training and education program of asset management in-house. I was asked by staff to also bring a slide forward on the Ontario Regulation 588-17. And this is the latest regulations from the province for asset management planning. And what they're requiring is, for the next 4 years, is 3 different flavors of asset management plan with some additional components to what they've required to date. So I'll explain that. Now, the good thing is the asset management plan coming forward to council today is meeting the requirements of about 95% of the 2021 asset management plan they're asking for. So once again, the town of Minto has been ahead, and we're staying ahead of the regulations, and I think that's fantastic. The July 1st, 2021 asset management plan, it wants for every infrastructure service, the transportation service, the water distribution service, the wastewater collection service, they want you to actually define what is the level of service that you apply to the public. It's a very difficult question, but we've already built the frameworks in this particular report in the documents, and working with staff, we've looked at key performance indicators we can track that are available to define what is the current level of service. And if they're tracked over the next couple of years, later a report can come forward to council to say, what is the definition of our level of service. So you're ahead of the curve, and you'll be ready for that particular report. In 2021, the province want you to depict what is your current level of service for roads, bridges, water, wastewater, and stormwater. They also want you to have some growth assumptions built into the report over and above what they do today. It's not too strict for municipalities under 25,000. You just have to identify some projected population and employment growth forecasts, and then determine what that will do for an impact on your current infrastructure. Do you have the capacity to meet the needs? Do you need additional infrastructure? Will that affect operations and maintenance costs? July 1st, 2023, the next flavor of asset management plan that the province require is the same as the one above, but now your current levels of service need to be defined for all the other infrastructure asset classes. So that would include facilities, fleets, equipment, land improvements, as they call it, which is, could be park assets, it could be parking lots, that type of thing. And then finally, in July 1st, 2024, lots of time to get to this one. They want to say, from your current level of service that you defined, what is the proposed level of service you'd like to get to as a community, and how do you have a strong financial plan in place that will bridge the gap? Or is your proposed level of service exactly what your current level of service is? It remains to be seen, and lots of time for that analysis, but the good news is that the town of Minto is very much ahead on this type of planning. One of the last slide, and I'll take questions, of course, are the benefits realized from good asset management practices. Obviously, good governance and increased accountability. These reports really do show the big picture. We're looking at the entire portfolio of what's owned. The good governance is it's reported forward to council. It's reported forward with the requirement of the financial envelopes required to sustain and maintain these portfolios. It really does bring data-driven decision-making, with all the good information within the report. It's built over time by the good work done by Minto staff. We're actually building decisions based on field work and field data. Enhanced sustainability of infrastructure, of course, we can see the big picture. It will help to bring improved levels of service and continued quality of life. So the town of Minto absolutely brings accurate forecasting of infrastructure replacement and enhancement needs forward. That's exactly what the report's about. And it ensures compliance with federal and provincial regulations, as we just went through. And with that, thank you very much. I'll take any questions.
Questions for John? Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, scared the hell out of me was that 4.1% cap. Is that just capital only? Are you suggesting that every year we should be 4.1% and then we would go into our regular tax base to cover our operations?
Thank you for the question. It is capital only. So it's 4.1% to be applied to capital. Yeah.
So in actual forecast, that's where we should be going every year from here out, just for capital. After that, boy. Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Okay.
Questions? Other questions? Or do you?
Well, I just want to say, near the beginning of the presentation, John mentioned doing the right thing. And I think a really good example is not just Minto, but we got that extra top up. And what did we do with it? We basically paved a lot of roads. We did a lot of mill and pave. And our roads foreman's not here, but basically that was his thinking. I've got this huge slate, as council's aware of really important road projects. But if I can do a little bit here and a little bit there, I can defer that for 10 or 15 years. And that's kind of illustrating that whole thing there too. And I know it is scary. And I know the government doesn't allow us to put grant projects, but as you can see, realistically, we have no hope of reaching that goal without support of the upper levels of government. And it's so critical. And we have the OCIF funding, and council continues to lobby for that sustainable funding, but you need the application base too to put us over the top for, say, if we reconstructed Clifford downtown, and we have Palmerston coming down. Without that really big funding, residents can't afford that. And the water, as pretend, looks good, but I know there's a lot of things bubbling under the surface. As drinking water quality management standards, there's a lot of potential lowering of tolerances for metals and contamination, and a lot of rehab work for the water towers and that too. So it is good right now, but that's one of our probably the biggest risks in that. But anyway, I'm pleased with what we've done so far, and Jackie and Lori and Al and Greg and all the staff. It's been good buy-in and supportive council.
Thank you, Gord. So does this go back to 2008 when this started, or was it before that? I know we talked about it quite a bit, thinking about the benefits of asset management. And your slide here at the end, the benefits, I mean, we're seeing that with our ability to forecast and I mean, so Gord and our staff, it's really nice to hear you say all the nice things about Minto and how well we're working together and getting this stuff done. It's nice to have a second opinion on it. So thank you for that. So if there's no other questions, John, thank you. Thanks for coming today. Are we doing anything else here?
I have a report later on
Okay.
just to formally adopt it. I think good practice.
Good. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
No, thank you.
Done.
So we have the public question period. Moving right along to the correspondence received for information and or requiring direction of council. You can stay as well, John, just if you want.
Hit the road.
Everybody wants to, but they're just busy.
So any of those items that we want to be have removed and discussed, we talked about C, the report there on the rural green property address and signage. Everybody okay with us pulling that out and discussing it later? I'll make can I make a motion? Will we do that? Okay, I'll make a motion that we do that and we accept the correspondence. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Elliott? All in favor of that? Thank you very much. That's carried. Reports from committee. Belinda's making her way up to the podium to talk about economic development.
Yes, thank you. So I'll be really brief. The main highlight of our conversation at the Economic Development Committee is an enhanced partnership that we're looking at with Wellington North and Mapleton. And our group had a great discussion about that. And we're actually looking at bringing a formal presentation to council, actually all three councils at the beginning of January. So watch for more information on that. Thanks to everyone who came out to the Chamber Social last night. I believe there was 80 people at the King Hotel. It was a lovely event, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting. I think that's really all I wanted to highlight out of the minutes. It was a good meeting. We have a good group. And yeah.
Any questions to Belinda on that economic development meeting? Hearing none. You want to just continue on, or are we?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So cultural roundtable, again, we just thought it was important to review our terms of reference to remind folks of what the purpose of the roundtable is. And last year we found that the group was really keen on adding more events, and I wanted to reflect on the point that the cultural roundtable is a resource. So we don't need to create any more events. We're there to support those that are doing them in our community. So that's something that we discussed. Also talked about potentially doing some project that's similar to what Wellington North is doing right now around recruitment, retention, and recognition of volunteers in their community. Many other things that happen in Minto, as you'll know, would not happen if it were not for our volunteers. So potentially looking at something like that down the road. We'll watch Wellington North's project and see how it goes. And the kind of key focuses for 2020 that they identified were continuing the Pride in the Park event, the storytelling events, culture days, local history events, potentially that training that I talked about, public art, and Clifford is gearing up. The Clifford Connects group is gearing up to do a telephone booth public art piece next year, so that should be fun. And then providing grant money to the Palmerston Fair. They're looking at doing an around the world theme, and our new Railway Fest, which is Ales on the Rails, in June in Palmerston. So we're really excited for that. The other thing that I wanted to note is that the Minto Pride Committee had approached us about doing some education work around this, and we suggested they maybe come to council in January as a delegation, and then invite council members to join us at our Cultural Roundtable meeting in February. Jess Rowden is a teacher with the Upper Grand School Board, and she teaches on equity, and they just feel it's important that we are educated around this topic, and then if we get questions around why we're holding Pride in the Park events, we have responsible answers to share back to that. So I think that's all.
Questions for Belinda? Thank you, Belinda. That sounds like a lot of fun. So I'd like a motion and a seconder on that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Economic Development and Planning Committee's report from November 21st, 2019 minutes and approves all recommendations contained therein. Councillor Anderson? Councillor Gunson, all in favor of that? Against? That's carried. Thank you. And the second one then is a mover and a seconder for the Council of the Town of Minto that receives the Cultural Roundtable Committee's November 25th, 2019 minutes and approves all recommendations. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Anderson, all in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you very much. Minto Trails Committee, Mr. Greg Mallet. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, so I'm just going to highlight, we had bring in 2 sets of minutes from our October 16th meeting. Just some highlights. We did our capital work on the trails was focused in Clifford this year. We built a new trail behind the new houses behind Ann Street, which is complete right up to the current construction. So that's the year 2 of our 3-year capital plan. Next year is focusing on Harrison. We spoke a little bit about what's going to go on with the master plan with the trails as being one of the focuses. The committee's excited to give their input and answer and be a resource for that part of the plan. Throughout this past year, we've been working on constantly the terms of reference for our committee. From doing a little bit of historical research on the committee, there was never a terms of reference done. The committee was kind of started as when the other committees folded, the former committees in Palmerston and Harrison. So it was a reaction to that. And throughout the years, it's been worked on but never finalized. So the group finalized it at the November 20th meeting, and I believe you have a copy of it. Are there any questions?
Questions for Greg? Okay. Hearing none. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Greg. Second mover, Councillor Dirksen. Councillor McKenzie, that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Minto Trails Committee minutes of October 16th, 2019, November 20th, 2019, and approves all recommendations contained therein. All in favor? Against? Thank you. That's carried. All right. We have Linda Dixon, our emergency manager, here today. Linda, you can go right into your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Turton and members of council. Good to be here today. Just before you is my annual report. I think most of you are very familiar with it. Just providing information to council as to how the town of Minto and your emergency management program committee have met the requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act for 2019. I think most of the information in there is pretty straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any questions to it. Just a couple of highlights. With respect to training, we have completed our control group training for 2019. We held our annual exercise a couple of weeks ago, was very well attended, and I think overall a very good exercise. You can see some highlights of some of the recommendations that came out of that exercise. And we were very busy in terms of Heather was very busy in terms of public education this year, putting all the municipalities' public education programs and trying to do some enhancements, particularly with respect to the Do One Thing campaign, which was something new she tried this year, kind of targeting a specific area of emergency preparedness, or how do you be prepared for specific hazards, and focusing on that out of 1 month out of each of the year. So that's highlighted on page 97 as well. Other than that, just to note that as far as in terms of the regulations, I'm comfortable that we've met them for this year, and after the meeting today, I'll be submitting your compliance documentation to the province. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Question through you.
Go ahead, Councillor McKenzie.
Are there any inspections anymore for facilities and what's going on out there in each municipality? Or
So I take it are you referring to like our public facilities for evacuations, similar to what Red
Yes.
Cross? So we signed a new agreement with Red Cross in end of fall last year, and we have asked them to go back and take a look at those surveys that were done over some of them 10, 12 years ago. And they have indicated that through the agreement, they will start to work on them. We've given them a list of sort of priority areas to start with. We need to follow back up and see where they're at with this for this year.
so it's the municipalities involved with that, or is it the
So the
county,
idea is that when they're going out, they will let us know so that we
great.
can
Okay.
give the facility managers a heads up that they're coming out just to follow up and confirm any changes. Okay.
Other questions? Yeah, that emergency exercise was excellent. It was here right in this room on November 22nd, and you're right, it was well attended, and it's really good to know that to see that firsthand. I can tell everyone that we're well protected here. If there's issues, we have an excellent plan and good people supporting us. And Linda, thank you for being a part of it and looking after us. Appreciate you coming.
It is a team effort, as I always say.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was
good.
definitely a
It was
team
good.
effort. It takes a leader. You and Heather do well. So,
I'll
so
let her know.
we have a kind of a mover and a seconder to get a motion that the Council of Town of Minto receives the emergency manager's CEMC's annual emergency management report for 2019 and accepts the report on the status of the town's emergency management program for 2019. Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Gunson, all in favor of that? Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, so Michelle, our building assistants, we have a severance application B7819 on the MEX Development Incorporation 304 Elora Street South, Ariston. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Turton. As you stated, we have an application before us, well, not before us, but before the County of Mountain Land Division that requires our comments, and the application would sever approximately 2.3 acre lot, which has an existing dwelling, which would remain, thereby creating a 22.73 vacant lot, which would be retained to create an entrance for a future subdivision development. The lands are currently zoned institutional, and although that is not relevant today, it deems what we have there as legal non-conforming, and no further zoning requirements will need to be met, because once that entrance becomes an exterior side yard, it will again become legal non-conforming. The County Planning Department has provided us with comments that they are in support of the severance application, as it is consistent with the provincial policy and generally conforms to the official plan. We also received comment from Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and they are also in support. They have no objection, as it meets with the natural hazard provincial policies. We as staff and our town engineer have met and reviewed the application, and we are also in support of the severance, providing that the common standard conditions can be met, be it financial and the partner and dedication. Those are so far the only requirements that we're bringing forward to you today.
Great. Questions? Councillor Elliott.
Future road, where was that going? You said
so
something.
Where you see there's a actual shed on your
Yep.
diagram on the front page there, that shed will be removed, and it's that portion there which leads into the much larger. If you look on the second page, you can see the entire development.
Yeah.
proposed
Okay,
piece of
so that
property.
shed's on our property. Is that what it is? Why it's going to be?
No. That is just land. That is one large property
Lot.
that has that existing house
Oh,
and
okay.
that shed. But the severance will then create what will, that smaller portion will become an entrance, which will lead into a future subdivision development.
So MEX is Moorfield Excavation. There's more to come, I'm sure, on this. So, question, sorry, go ahead.
The entrance now off Aurora to the south of that, what's on the property, to the newer house to the south. Does it still have access back to the property to the railroad tracks, or it's a property? Like there's an access to that property to the south, right beside the house.
So where you see that curve, because you're talking way at the back of the property.
So is that going to stay? There will be one on each side of the house, or that house may be gone. I don't know.
The best of my understanding, that house is going to remain, and that entrance will stay for that house. I don't.
So there'll be two entrances to that property.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to.
You're telling me there's a right.
Sorry, I don't know what
Okay.
you're referring to.
An entrance off of which property?
I think what he's asking is it about a year ago they put a small entrance in off Elora Street.
But that's down further.
I think that's what Mark's
Between
talking
the two
about.
houses.
Go ahead, Terry.
Only one house.
So what that entrance that was put in, it's just a construction access only. So the property needs a substantial amount of fill, and they didn't want to bring it down the back streets, so they put in just a temporary access to allow for that, but it won't be permanent.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
I learned something as well.
That's a good question.
Very good question.
Other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So, can I have a mover and a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor McKenzie. So that the Council of the Town of Minto recommends that the County of Wellington Land Division Committee approve the severance application B7819 MEX Developments Inc. Part of Park Lot 88, Concession D in the Town of Minto, and that the following conditions be considered. Number 1, that the applicant satisfies all requirements of the Town of Minto, financially and otherwise, which the town may deem to be necessary for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands. Number 2, that the applicant satisfies the requirements of the Town of Minto in reference to parkland dedication as provided for in the Planning Act, including, where applicable, paying cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $500 per lot or other specified in the application policy of the town at the time of the consent. So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor of that motion? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Mr. Cam Forbes, we want to talk about the business and transient traders licensing.
Deputy Mayor Turton and members of council. This bylaw was last updated in 2000 and it's needed a bit of work due to some recent problems we've had with door-to-door sales and whatnot. So to make this work a little better, we've put in some additional definitions just to make it a little easier to read, a little more clear, and some clear requirements for to obtain a license, such as a criminal check for door-to-door salespeople and inspections, liability insurance for door-to-door sales and refreshment vehicles as well, and written permission to hold to put your refreshment vehicle on someone else's land. The other thing is, we've never required them to carry a license, so now they'll have to either post their license if they have a refreshment vehicle. They'll have to post their license, or door-to-door sales will have to carry it with them and produce it on request. And there will be set time frames for door-to-door sales to be carried on between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And then donation boxes have been a bit of an issue the last couple of years as well, with people coming in and they're not registered charities. They're just people want to put a box in to collect clothing and make a profit. So we've got some requirements for them to do that. Contact names, the boxes have to be looked after, they have to be a registered charity, and they have to keep the boxes in good repair so they don't make the town look messy. And then also we put in some set fines for people that decide they don't need a license. So there really shouldn't be any financial considerations. There's, with the set fines, any enforcement should be offset with those. That's my report.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Councillor Dirksen?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So does this cover people who do not live in Minto who decide to set up a, I don't know, like a vegetable stand or something like that?
Yeah, they're required in the bylaw. It states that they have to. You can sell produce that you grow on your farm. You can sell it on your farm. They're exempt from a license, but anybody else that wants to come in and sell produce in town, and the farmers market is exempt as well, but anybody else that wants to bring their stuff from Howick or North Perth, whatever, into the Minto would be required to have a license.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So further to that, then, what if you live in Minto but you decide to set up on the side of the road someplace, like not on your own property though?
You'll need permission.
Permission, but they wouldn't have to go with a license and so on then, or they would have to have a full license and liability insurance and everything else.
In there that yes, on your property.
Not on your own property.
On your own property, you wouldn't be required to have a
Right.
license.
Okay, so anywhere else you would then.
Right.
Councillor Anderson?
So the people who do this, and we all see people who, are we going to be notifying them? Is it a complaint-based bylaw like most of our bylaws are, that somebody has to complain about them being there? Because there are people who habitually bring in booths or wagons and sell maple syrup and fresh veggies and stuff. How we...
That's the way we've done it in the past, is complaint-based. So
we're assuming they're going to read the paper and...
Hopefully.
Okay. And then what, they come out to the town office? Like, is there going to be an explanation circulated to people how to go about that? Or
well, that's something we could do, I guess, is
add to the article in the paper, or put in the paper that if they've been selling things, it's just a reminder that it's no longer, just to prevent confrontation or them feeling bad if they're previously informed.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've allowed them to do it for years. So if we're changing it, I think we need to do something to make sure that people are aware so they're not caught in conflict of the law without realizing it. Rather than us passing it, because I'm sure not everybody in town watches our meetings, as riveting as they are.
I sure hope not.
Especially members of that community, because they probably don't have an access to a viewer. I don't know if they read the paper either, but I just think it's nice to let people know when the ground level has changed and the playing field has changed.
Councillor McKenzie?
Next, further to what Councillor Dirksen was asking, so the site, can we regulate on county and highways within our municipality? Because there's a lot on those roads that we have.
Yeah, I believe
that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Councillor Dirksen?
Well, and I think any time that there's a new bylaw, we tend to go with education. And I mean, I don't think you would just say, hey, and slap a fine on somebody who's innocently not realizing that they're breaking a bylaw either. Especially one like this that isn't going to make it's not a life or death situation, right?
The biggest problem is the door-to-door sales. We've had no way to really control it. I chased some people out of town, but we didn't really have anything to make it enforceable in our bylaw in the past, and same with the clothing boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest concern.
So, Councillor Anderson?
So again, with door-to-door salesmen, people are going to have to complain. They're going to have to call you and say there's somebody at the door, because
They do.
nobody ever comes out to the country. We don't get it. Oh, they do call you and complain. Oh, all right.
The hard part is catching.
Okay.
You need a faster car.
Everybody needs to move out to the country.
Right.
Nobody comes to our door. Careful.
There are some people who watch this.
So it's still complaint based. If somebody has a box sitting there and they're managing it with old clothes, old furniture, whatever, and nobody says anything to you, nobody complains, it's not okay, but it's okay.
No, if it's seen, yes, I can deal with it, but there is a lot of complaints come in about the boxes. A lot of times what happens is they put them in, and people dump their stuff. They don't even bother putting it inside. Nobody cleans it up for a week, 2 weeks. It just looks nice.
Nice
Somebody
one.
dumps a mattress beside it.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? This is a good one. Good luck on this. Mover and a seconder. Sorry.
You say that with confidence.
Oh, I'm confident. I think it's good. I mean, we had very little before, so especially when you talk about door-to-door salesmen. Yeah. That's so.
You need a dog, right, Ken?
Then we have a bylaw.
Maybe 3.
So the motion is that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the bylaw enforcement officer's December 3rd, 2019 report regarding the updated transient traders bylaw and considers passing the bylaw in open session. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Anderson, thank you. Councillor Gunson, all in favor of this? Against? That's carried. I'd like to pass the chair over to Mr. Councillor Ron Elliott.
Oh.
We have a.
I was pretty excited about this. I'd like to introduce Al Carr, our facilities manager, and you have a report for us.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Elliott, Deputy Mayor Turton, and Council. I'm here to talk about Beehive Park today. We've given a little bit of history in the report, as the municipality's been looking after it for close to 20 years. And I've outlined a little bit of information about the park itself and some of the operating costs that are associated with it. In the 8 years I've been in this position, we've had numerous concerns brought forward by the staff that the park is being used for things outside of its purpose, and that is being a rest area for the traveling public. Some of the things are listed in the report, and I don't think we want to get too far into specifics, but there's a lot of garbaging things being left at the park. We did bring this matter up with our department heads as well as the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and we've got a couple of options there. We would at this point like to request that council receive a report and that we look at this land and declare it as surplus and perhaps look at selling it down the road. I'm sure there'll be a couple of questions on this.
Questions on this? Councillor McKenzie.
If it was deemed, if it's going on the market, is there enough to set back there for structure building? There is, eh?
Are you saying yes?
150 by 150.
Yeah, but from the roads.
Yep.
It's usually that's very good. Thank you.
Other questions?
Deputy Mayor, you got a question?
Sorry.
Throw something at him.
Sorry about that.
You caught me by surprise.
I apologize. I don't have a question. Other than, I mean, when we bought this for $1 way back in 2000, there was nothing set out by the MTO to say it will, you will, nothing like that.
I did bring the rather lengthy agreement with me.
No.
And I did state in the background that after 10 years.
After 10 years,
of
yeah.
registration.
Yep. Thank you.
One more.
One, if you don't mind, Chair Elliott,
Yeah.
there's something in the report I failed to bring up, and this was brought up at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. Is if we do decide to go ahead and close down this Beehive rest area, one of the things is we're hoping to encourage people to come through and stop in town to support the local businesses. in the communities.
Councillor McKenzie.
Just one more. There at a time there was a well on that property. Does it still exist?
I'm sorry, I don't know that.
What was that? Sorry. There was a well on that property at one time. Does it still exist, or? I do not know that. No.
Councillor.
I'm sorry.
Well, I know he's.
I know we all do that.
Much better looking.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody knows where this is and realizes it's right at the end of our road where I live. So there are a lot of people stop there and use it as a rest place. They use it for bio break because we do have a Johnny on the spot, for want of a better term. I don't know what you're supposed to call those. But anyways, I see people there who are having a picnic, so they've obviously planned to stop there with a picnic. There's room for a truck to park in there. I think there's a safety aspect that people are taking a rest, so that's good. I know we talked about stopping in town in the earlier report. I don't think we have a place in town that's that easy to get into that is that would fit the bill quite the same. Police officers like to park there. They make sure that we stop at the corner whenever we're heading out to the highway, and it also slows the traffic on 109, so there's a bit of a safety aspect there, I think. I feel like we're maybe caving to a few bad eggs and allowing them to spoil a really beautiful rest spot in Minto for the countless good people who stop there. But anyways, just my humble opinion. We, and I know some of my neighbors as well, we just have gotten in the habit of waving every time there's people there, and they wave back, so they already know Minto is a friendly spot. Property's pretty small for residents, and I would suggest it's too close to at least 2 barns, but anyways, you guys are smarter at that than me, so that's fine. It seems pretty small for a business, but it might work. If we were to return it to farmland, there's definitely some costs to that. We'd be losing about a dozen larger trees. And I also had jotted down the well and septic. Like those buildings, the school and the shed were removed in the late 60s. So I would doubt that anything was decommissioned there. So I guess you'd have to sell it as is, where is. I don't know how you do that. But anyways, those were my kind of thoughts on it. I realize there's a cost to it, and I realize there's been some vandalism type activity there. But I mean, if we use that as our basis, then we wouldn't be doing anything in Minto because there's vandalism everywhere, and we try to fight against that, and we try to not spoil things because of those bad eggs.
Chris?
Just to answer some of your things, as Al was talking about, the other thing that we want them to stop in town is kind of what we're doing. So there is the arena with the pavilion and all that stuff that we've talked about that you could easily stop trucks in there and have your picnics and stuff like that. The other part is just the other side of Hairston is the actual MTO picnic area that is run by the MTO. So that is another option for people that don't want to.
Greenbush, you mean?
Yeah, Greenbush. Yeah. There's that one, which is only less than 10 kilometers down the road. So, and then there's another one that if they go to 23, there's another one there that they have. So there's lots of options if people want to stay in the country and have that country feel. That is not a burden on our taxpayers to maintain. But we just, as staff, when we talked in the back what Al stood up, we kept coming back to the fact that the committee mentioned was we would put a lot of money into our downtowns and a Tannery Park and a lot of those areas that we really want to encourage people to stop there and have their rest and picnics there. And maybe we need to add some picnic tables or something like that to accommodate them, but which Belinda's already way on top of, like usual.
But somehow we have to advertise for people to get there.
Yep, and that I think Belinda and her group will look into that, and maybe we just put a sign there too while we're going through it to say, rest area closed. Please stop at our many areas in Hairston on your way through. But we've spent a lot of money on our downtowns, and we'd really like to encourage them to stop there and use that. So then you can wave at them when you go by there and make sure they know they're friendly there too. So for us.
Have we got any other questions? Comments? Okay. I'll read the recommendation. that the Council of the Town of Minto received the December 3rd, 2019 report from the facilities manager entitled Beehive Park, and that the council declares the land legally described as Concession C, Part Lot 96, RP 61R7921, surplus to the needs of the corporation, and that council directs staff to obtain an appraisal of said land. Do we have a mover?
There's more.
There's
Next
more.
page.
Oh,
Keep going.
and that the council directs staff to give the notice of public a proposed sale of land as per town bylaw 08-03, the sale and other disposition of land. Councilor McKenzie?
Can I
Yeah,
ask one more question? Has it been offered to the county or? Yep. Or it has to be deemed surplus first? Does the county have picnic areas on their highway, on their roads? They don't anywhere. Okay.
Okay. So
Can I keep it?
can I take you as a motion when you were speaking?
No, you didn't ask for it.
I did. But
A mover.
A mover. You, Councilor McKenzie moves it, and Deputy Mayor Turton seconded it. All in favor of that motion as we get through this? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
I'll turn the chair over to our Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much.
I had to get it when I got it. I even forgot I had it.
So we have a tile drain loan,
It's not a big deal.
and we're going to get Gord to fill us in on this.
Sure. So, as you know, the province still has the tile drainage loan option available for qualified farmers, and we've received an application. The maximum amount of the loan is $50,000 per year, and this particular farmer wishes to go for the $50,000. So they need our permission. Again, it's a contingent liability of the town, but we've never had one not come through yet. So.
Questions for Gord on that? Okay, then the motion is that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Revenue Coordinator's November 28th, 2019 report regarding a tile drainage loan and consider the tile drainage rating bylaw 2019-98 during open session. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Dirksen, Councillor Gunson, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so moving along here, we'll ask our treasurer to talk to us about the accounts.
Sure. We have a smaller amount this year this week than usual. I guess an interesting one is in economic development. We repurchased some land near the back of the property, and as you know, when we sell it, we have certain conditions that the buyer has to meet, and they were not met, so we utilized our option to repurchase it back at the same price. And again, the very well used holiday shopping guide, got the bill for that, and I think residents are starting to look forward to seeing that, and it's all the events on it. As we know, communications is often an issue, so it's all in one, so that's $4,400. And we have some late bills for grass cutting. And I guess, as Al was saying, they've been so busy cutting grass they didn't get around to the bill. So that was about $25,000. That's right, yeah. So did that. And some chemicals for the wastewater at $13,000. So 13 things.
Questions? Any questions to Gord on the accounts? Hearing none, can I have a mover and a seconder then? Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor McKenzie, the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Treasurer's report dated November 22nd regarding the approval of the accounts and approves the Town of Minto accounts by department for November 2019. All in favor of that motion? Against? That's carried. Thank you, Gordon. There's one other item here.
So further to John's presentation earlier from Public Sector Digest, I would like to formally adopt the asset management plan. Now, we know there's a lot of intangible benefits to it, but there's also a lot of practical benefits. and primarily under the federal gas tax, we have to show that we're moving forward. And I would say every grant and infrastructure grant application that we have now wants either the asset management plan attached or a link on our website or that too. And I often have to produce a formal adoption of council. So I've got some background in there that I think we've covered, but I'd just like to put it on the record, I guess.
Thank you. Gordon, any questions for our treasurer? Hearing none, then the motion is that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the November 29th, 2019 report from the treasurer and adopts the attached asset management plan. I have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor McKenzie, all in favor of that motion? Against? That's carried. Thank you, Gord. The Ontario Municipal Modernization Program, our acting CAO, Mr. Chris Harrell. Can you talk about this?
Okay, forget it. So the report that I bring forward to you is that we're all, sorry, let me back up. One of the things that came out of the KPMG study that I gave to you that you're going to read over the next couple of weeks and that I will do a presentation for you on the next council meeting about it is one of the items in there was the IT portion of it and how municipalities all need IT and we could possibly potentially share IT and IT services, IT software, all that kind of stuff. So what we're doing is putting a grant application in, the new recently released fund, I think it was $140 million.
$142 million, yeah.
Yeah, $142 million. So all the municipalities except for Erin and the County of Wellington have all joined in and signed in to apply for this grant. If we get the grant, they will pay for a third party to come in and look at all of our ITs and then come forward with a report on how we could share stuff, how we could purchase together, all that kind of stuff. And then the second intake for this grant will be to apply for money to actually implement that. So we thought as the municipalities and CEOs, it was a great start. It's something that a lot of us would like to explore anyway to see if there's a lot of efficiencies that could be realized with it. So this is just getting your approval and we can pass a recommendation that we can send in with the grant to say that we are on board and that we would like to apply for this grant with the other municipalities and the county.
Questions? Councillor Dirksen.
So I think one of the big fears in this is the lack of, or the moving away from shopping locally in some cases. Mm-hmm. I know a number of years ago the hospital boards went this route, and so then they they weren't able to make purchases locally. Mm-hmm. So I think somehow we have to be able to protect some of that a little bit.
So you'll have the report that'll come back from you. Like this is just going to be a report that comes to you from the third party.
Yeah.
So you can address that and express those concerns then. One of the things is staff that we're very concerned about, and Gord was at a seminar that can back me up on this last week about cyber attacks. Mm-hmm. And it's become a real big issue with municipalities. So where we're getting to the point where there's maybe very few local people that can provide IT services
to that extent
that can protect us, and that's become a huge fear, locking municipalities out, getting into your server and into your backup servers and data that locks you out of that and demands money. So it's definitely something we need to look at, and I'm fully expecting that the report might say that to get to that level you need in-house IT people that are constantly looking at your servers and watching that kind of stuff, and even some IT people that throw out fake emails to staff to see if they actually open them up or not and say, you got caught, don't do it again type thing. So there's lots of things that have come with that.
Yeah, so. I just read today that the city of Stratford is hiring someone and they're describing him as a security guard for their data. And, so whereas like Minto wouldn't go to that extent, but maybe through the shared services we could, because I think it's a real specialty even within the IT. And unfortunately, it's becoming a risk, and it's bizarre how they're trying to be one step ahead of. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
just one of the items.
Exactly. So it's just this first would be the report, and I agree with Councillor Dirksen that those are some things we can look at. But at least we'll have the report in our hands, and then the next step will be council can then direct us on how to go forward with that. But I think this is a very good first step.
Other questions? Okay, so the motion is that the Council of the Town of Minto support the submission of the multi-party expression of interest, EOI, for the proposed third-party IT service delivery review project for the Township of Wellington North, the Town of Minto, Township of Mapleton, the Township of Pushlinch, Guelph, Aramasa Township, the Township of Center Wellington, and Wellington County. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Dirksen, all in favor of this motion? Against? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our business other than other business disclosed as additional items. I believe Councillor Elliott is first. Sorry, is that a surprise as well?
No, I was on for this. I even brought my poster. December 7th, this weekend, which is Saturday, Christmas Rocks house tour is on. And part of that is they have different houses that they go to. And the Anglican Church in Palmerston was chosen as the church that they're going to go through this year. And at that church, we'll be providing a soup and sandwich luncheon. And it's about $10 for that. And you don't have to be part of the tour to be able to go through that luncheon. But and you also, if you're a part of that tour, you're not obligated to go to the luncheon either. But as you're passing through St. Paul's Anglican Church Hall, you're welcome to take part in that. And it's going to be well decorated, as are all the other houses that we've done. My wife, unfortunately, my wife and my children have gone through this houses in the past, and they said it's just fantastic to go through. So if you get the opportunity to do that. And the proceeds from this luncheon is going to Brooklyn Butchers Charity, which is Minto Food Banks across the town of Minto. And she's going to be there that day too to welcome you there, and hopefully we can raise a lot of money. I can't, between the two girls, her niece is also involved in helping Brooklyn with this part of her Miss Midwest that she offered to raise funds for the food bank, and so the two of them have worked hard. I think they're well over $3,000 that they've raised up to this point, and they're still having different programs and stuff that they like. So if you get the opportunity, it's a good cause, and I think you'll have fun going through the church and the different houses. If you want a phone number, you can phone 343-2330 or 807-4801, and that would get you tickets too. We can put them away for you. And I'm not sure, I haven't got a number for the house tour, but that's easily found. So you're welcome to go to that. And I have Lions Lottery tickets for sale this year. Hard to believe, every year. And
what's the lottery?
What happens is it's an elimination draw come Valentine's weekend, and you eliminate it through, and I can't remember how many prizes. There's $50 prizes. There's $500. I believe there's 4 trips. One is to Vegas. One is a trip to an island. I'm not sure what the other one is. And the last one is a cruise. That's the biggest one. And I believe Councillor McKenzie is taking his trip this year sometime. He won that last year. He wants to take us with him.
Where are you getting that?
And he's assured me that he wants to buy a ticket, and he wishes everybody else would too. And the proceeds go back to the Lions Club. So in Palmerston.
Where does he come up with this stuff?
Are you denying that other items? A couple items. Last night I attended Councillor Elliott and myself, and I'm not sure I was late getting there, but it was the Chamber's meeting, and it was amazing, the number of people that were at the King's Hotel, and it's also amazing how that hotel motel has been fixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed up. They've really renovated it. The kitchen's gone. It's just absolutely amazing. It's going to be, and it is now going to be an asset to this town with 33 rooms. So good for them. The other thing is on Saturday is the Palmerston Santa Claus Parade, correct? And we are in it. I'm sure our friend Mike or somebody will set us up. Do you have anything to add to that, Chris? Okay.
No, but we should figure out before we leave who's going to be there.
So who's going to be there? The two young ladies?
2 young ladies. Yep. Heavy on the young.
And so are you, can you, Jeff, Mr. Councillor Gunson, look after the vehicle? Okay, thank you. And where are we meeting?
Fire hall.
At the fire hall? Perfect.
6:30.
Perfect. So are we on? I will not be there, but so we're good to go. Thank you very much. And no candies.
No candies.
No candies.
But
Other people threw candies.
But
look at Chris. He's looking at the ceiling. He's
need
looking
to
for
make
the
an
mouse. He's looking
announcement
for
from the
Bojangles.
fire department.
Unless you walk them. Is that correct?
All right. We've got that straight. Thank you.
I had a couple items.
Too late.
Oh, sorry.
And I have one too.
Oh, pardon me.
Okay.
I butted in.
That's okay. That's okay. You're the chair. You can do
You haven't done that before.
Councillor Dirksen, go ahead.
So there is a play at the Grey Wellington Theatre Guild you may have heard about. It's called Knickers. I understand it's a brief comedy. And the last 3 shows, so they've had 3 shows, and the last 3 are this weekend. We have tickets for an evening coming up, so I have not seen it, but I understand that it is very entertaining and very well done. It's the Grey Wellington Theatre Guild are very hardworking, committed people, and it'd be great if they could fill some seats in there, or fill some more seats. There's lots of Christmas events coming up. There's a community choir in Palmerston that I've been involved in again this year, and they're presenting a cantata. There's over 50 voices. The choir is directed by Lauren Courson, and it's going to be presented on December the 22nd at the Christian Reformed Church. Free admission. Everybody's welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. Councillor Anderson.
Northern Theatre this weekend is presenting Star, which is a Christmas show, but on Sunday it's sponsored by the Palmerston Church, one of the churches, so it's $2.50 admission, and the show is at 5, not 7, for the youngsters to be able to go to school awake and refreshed. So I don't think most people know that unless they're looking at the event board. Correct?
Correct.
Mr. Elliott?
I think Elaine explained that to me before I left. That's where I get my information from.
Yes. So it's 5 o'clock on Sunday, not the usual 7. So don't show up at 7 because the show will be moving out and you'll be in the way of the people exiting.
We talk about
And
volunteers.
it's sponsored, and I think it's $5 admission all weekend for everybody, all ages. So bargain.
We
Bargain
talk about
Christmas spirit.
volunteers, you guys. All these events, every one of them, are being put on by volunteers. So
Right.
let's support them. Thank you. So I would like a motion. Oh, certainly. Go ahead, Councillor McKenzie.
Is it okay to ask questions about the CAO recruitment process? This open meeting?
Certainly. Go ahead.
Okay,
Councillor McKenzie.
twice in the information package, it's got interview guide. So is January the 9th the first set or the second set of interviews?
Second set.
No, that's
It's a second interview. Second interview is January 9th.
Council got the invitation to go to the second one.
Yes.
Which is the 9th.
Correct.
Thank you. Now the questions for that, does council get a chance to submit questions that maybe we'd like to see be asked, or how does that happen?
We will work with our consultant to put the questions in. So if there's something you'd like to see be asked, you can put questions forward and we'll send them to the consultant.
Any other questions?
Or if I
Okay.
see Chris after. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Gunson, that the Committee of Whole convenes into the regular council meeting. All in favor? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, have we any notice of motions? Hearing none. We are going to move along to the resolution adopting proceedings of Committee of the Whole. So moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that the Council of Town of Minto ratifies the motions made in the Committee of the Whole. All in favor of that?
Yeah.
Against? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, I better sign that. Okay. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that bylaw 2019-97 to enact a transient trader bylaw to license, regulate, and govern businesses within the town of Minto be introduced and read a first, second, third time, passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of that? Against? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Gunson, seconded by Councillor McKenzie, that bylaw 2019-98, being a bylaw to authorize the Deputy Mayor and Acting Clerk to execute a tile drainage loan, Concession 5, Part Lot 19 and 20, be introduced and read a first, second, third time, and passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor? Against? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that bylaw 2019-99 being a bylaw to appoint Christopher David Harrell as Deputy Clerk, effective December 4th, be introduced and read a first, second, third time, and passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor? Against? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Gunson. After he signs it,
slacking tonight.
That bylaw 2019-100 being a bylaw to appoint Annaline Linda McRobb as acting clerk effective December 4th, 2019 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that bylaw 2019-101 to confirm actions of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Minto respecting a meeting held December 3rd, 2019, be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor? Against? Carried. Thank you. And finally, moved by Councillor Dirksen, second by Councillor Anderson, that the Council of the Town of Minto adjourn the meeting again to call the mayor. All in favor? Passed. Thank you.